Yeah, go. Oh, that's kind of what I was checking on. But that's on me. You have to leave early. I'll be back. And Audrey, you're in Julie's Thursday group, right? Julie's Thursday group. All right, let's stop that. Let's close out of that so we don't violate any copyright law. Yeah, thank you. Just talking to myself over here as I set all this up. All right. We love technology. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Citywide. Can you hear me now? All right, great. For those of you who I haven't had the pleasure to meet, my name is Liam Collier. My pronouns are he, him. I am the Community Programs and Special Projects Manager here at the Goodman, which means a lot of things, but most importantly means that I have the honor of running GeNarrations. It has been such, no, I'm not gonna do that. It has been such a great 2 weeks listening to all of these stories, like 200 hours of them. It's been great. Stories of Sustenance has been such a fascinating theme to get to explore with all of you. I've been really moved by how many of these stories have been about family, how many of these stories have been about going through some really difficult times and how you get through them. And I don't know, I learned something every single session of GeNarrations, but this one especially has been a real teaching moment for me. You've taught me a lot this session, and I really appreciate all of you, so thank you for that. I'd like to welcome members of our Education and Engagement Committee. We have about a dozen of them here today. The role of the Education and Engagement Committee at the Goodman is to support programs like GeNarrations and also to act as ambassadors with the community to help spread the word about what we're doing here at the Goodman with all of you. So I am thrilled to have you all here today. If we want to just give them a quick round of applause, great to have you here. Thanks for coming. All right, to my friends on YouTube, whether you are watching this live or you are watching it 20 years from now because you're feeling nostalgic about this great program now in its 42nd year, we're glad you're here. If you want to interact in any way with the storytellers to shout out things you love, there's a chat box right over here. Hopefully I'm pointing the right way. There's a chat box right over here, and you can type lines of the story that you really love. You can say, just share some applause emojis. You can shout someone's name in all caps. That's a great way to interact. And in a couple of days, if people go back and watch the video, they'll be able to see those comments. So it's a way to really get a sense of how the audience felt, which is really important for a storyteller. As we know, stories become theater once we have an audience. And it's great to have you here in person and online today. I'm going to get started. Today's show is going to run a little over 2 hours. We're going to take 2 breaks, once after the first handful of stories, and then we'll watch some on Zoom, and then we'll come back in person. So my only other things I want to say, we right now, our safety policy is that masks are strongly recommended, but not required. And we really appreciate you all being here to celebrate theater in person. So our first storyteller is the fantastic Pete Wood. He is one of Adrian Azevedo's students up at Willie White in Rogers Park, and he is sharing a wonderful story today titled, But Seriously. Pete Wood.
Thank you. Does work? Never mind. Leaving home on the first day of the first grade, my mother says to me, be careful, be careful. If the kids tell you to do anything dangerous, don't do it. Even if they call you a chicken, be a chicken. Be a chicken. Got it, Ma, be a chicken. Whatever fear my mother couldn't put into me, she sent me to Catholic school where the nuns perfected it. There I was, first day in the first grade, and we're all sitting at the desks, hands folded, in uniforms. Sister David is taking attendance. I'm pretty sure she was a woman. All you could see was a face squeezed out of a black and white outfit they called a habit. It's like, Mr. Wood, Mr. Wood, Mr. Wood. I'm looking around for my father. Are you Mr. Wood? No, I'm Peter Wood. Ah! All the kids are laughing. Pretty good. My first day in first grade, and I'm already getting laughs. She says, go to the wall. So there I am in front of a brick wall with an audience laughing, the beginning of my stand-up career. In fourth grade, I had Sister Mary John Allen, who looked like President Lyndon Baines Johnson in a nun outfit. Having undiagnosed ADHD, I was in trouble all the time. I couldn't focus, couldn't pay attention. The kids would always be telling on me. This one girl in particular, Lois Kidney. Sister, Peter Wood is talking. Sister, Peter Wood is drawing. Sister, Peter Wood is looking out the window. Peter, why are you looking out the window? I'm like this. Peter, huh? Why are you looking out the window? All their heads are turning, looking at me like this. I had to come up with something quick because I didn't even realize I was looking out the window. So I said, I was listening to the garbage truck. Ah! Come up to the blackboard. Yes, sister. Now, this was the year they introduced a new thing called long division, which to me, they might as well call completely impossible division, right? So I'm sitting at the blackboard like this. You know what you're doing? Oh, yes, sister. I put the 3 into the 5, carry the 2, and push. You don't know what you're doing. Yes, sister. You know why you don't know what you're doing? I'm stupid. No, because you don't pay attention to class. Because you don't do your homework. You always leave your book home. Maybe because my brain is dislodged. I got left back that year. But it's okay, because my brother's a class clown in the grade behind me. He needed a straight man. It was perfect. My mother would say, they're not laughing with you. They're laughing at you. To which I would say, I'll take what I can get. I did make it to college eventually. I majored in art because I wanted to be a cartoonist. It got me a job in an ad agency, art studio. That turned out to be tedious and boring. So I took classes in stand-up comedy at night. Slowly, I was moving up from the open mics into the clubs. I'd be out all night, late for work every day. The agency started losing clients, so that job was cut. Stand-up comedy wasn't exactly paying the rent, so I moved to Chicago. I immediately got a job in Tony and Tina's Wedding, a live interactive comedy show about an Italian wedding. Yeah, I played Nunzio, Tony's father, a strip club owner who goes to this wedding with a stripper girlfriend whose dresses up to here and out to here. Talk about a dream job. Every night I had a free Italian dinner, and the idea was to flirt with women and get them up onto the dance floor. While dancing, they would not let me be in character. They'd always say, what's your real name? Nunzio. No, really, Anthony Nunzio. So how long have you been doing this? I don't know, about an hour and a half. Where are you from? Little Italy. No, really. That led to a job doing a gangster tour about Al Capone, another New Yorker who made it big in Chicago. Right? Yeah. So here I am, Johnny Rocco, dressed up like a 20s gangster. We opened up the tour by pointing a gun at the people and saying, all right, shut up. Another dream job. Sometimes I do the tour and I take a group to a speakeasy. They hang out with them, mingle as Johnny Rocco. Again, they can't seem to play along. What's your real name? How long have you been doing this? Where are you from? I'm not supposed to be drinking with them, but one guy insists, you have to try this bourbon cocktail. An offer I could not refuse. They're having these complicated Wall Street executive conversations. I'm chiming in with gems like, yeah, that's how Al ran his organization. You want me to whack this guy? Am I a clown to you? I move over to another table, these executive women. I'm like, nice to meet you. I'm Johnny Rocco. Rocco, join us for a drink. Don't mind if I do, ladies. So how long have you been doing this? Is that your real name? Where you from? Come on, I'm working here. One woman says, you sound like you're from New York. Yeah, I'm from New York. What are you doing in Chicago? Parole. No, really. Hey, when Al Capone calls, you go. So I'm here. What part of New York are you from? This lady will not play. Staten Island. What part? New Brighton. Oh, I live on Clove Road. Oh, yeah, that's right by St. Peter's Cemetery. A lot of my associates are buried there. Where did you go to school? St. Paul's. Me too. What's your name? Rocco. No, really. I give up. Peter Wood. Oh, I was in your class. I'm Lois Kidney. Lois Kidney? Of all the gin joints in all the world, I wind up in the middle of Chicago with Lois Kidney. I'm afraid she's going to rat me out for drinking on the job and telling everybody who I really am. She says, so she goes, you became a comedian, huh? Yeah, makes sense. She pulls out a $20 bill for a tip. Here, you were funny. Well, another man might have been angry. And another man might have been hurt. Another man would have said, go fuck yourself. I stashed the bill in my shirt. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful. Thank you, Pete. All right. Our next storyteller is a representative from Julie Gainey's Friday class here, or maybe online. This is Denise Murchison sharing her story, running on a plant-based diet.
Thank you. As I look back on my plant-based diet journey, it had a rather ironic beginning. The Thanksgiving of 2016 found me surrounded by plates of turkey smothered in gravy, cheesy macaroni and cheese, buttered rolls, sweet potatoes, and collard greens. My sister-in-law, Deborah, sat there serenely with a plate of vegetables. Now, Deborah is an interesting person. I'm not clear whether she is my sister-in-law, my ex-sister-in-law, or my brother's girlfriend. It's a long story how she got back together with my brother after walking out one bright and sunny summer morning 9 years ago with all the money from the bank accounts and all the furniture. Puff. My brother had no idea where his wife had disappeared to with all of their money and his belief that he had a sound marriage. Well, there sat Deborah at our dining room table, looking sophisticated and well-dressed as always. Deborah is a likable person, and I must admit, she's an A+ conversationalist. So I was paying close attention to her newest obsession, plant-based diets. Deborah said, I've lost 30 pounds, I have more energy, and I'm a lot happier since I started the plant-based diet. Deborah's dimples widened. I was intrigued. My brother was not ambiguous. He said, give me my meat and potatoes, or added more turkey, ham to his Thanksgiving plate. His decisive movements told me he wanted no part of Deborah's latest health kick. Me, I was all in. I wanted to lose weight, have more energy, and to be happier. Eventually in the new year, I embarked on my transformation diet journey without hesitation. I found that it wasn't that hard. No more Big Macs, no more Kentucky Fried Chicken, more going to the church of kale, broccoli, nuts, and black-eyed peas. One thing did come to challenge my march to become a full-fledged veganess warrior. running. Some of my friends have nutritionists, but my no frills HMO insurance plan doesn't seem to offer that. So I consulted my doctor, MD, the internet. My online trusted resources told me as a distance runner, I needed to get a high level of protein in my diet. Now, this was in direct competition with my mission to maintain a vegetarian-like diet. I kept training and eating my leafy greens through the gloomy and chilly months of February and March. April rolled in, the snow had melted, and I signed up for my first race, a nice, quiet suburban half marathon with a lot of yoga practicing, downward dog, soccer mom runners. Now, these women in their high-priced running outfits and shoes, they're the best. The good news was I met Morelia, a tiny dark-haired dynamo, and Christina, a patient and steady special education teacher. They were my pace runners. Pace runners are like drill sergeants. I follow their commands because I'm in their group. Now, I'm not a fast runner, not at all. I was delighted to have someone to talk to and exchange stories for the next 2 hours and 40 minutes, over 13.1 miles. These two women truly sustain me. Running can be, well, it can be lonely. I must admit, as my energy began to flag, Morella would give me a nervous look and urge me to keep up the pace. At mile 9, an unescapable thought popped into my head, an image of myself enjoying filet mignon. But my brain fought back. You are on a no-meat diet. At mile 10, I allowed an incredible, delicious image of lobster dipped in butter to come into my head. I saw the baseball-headed Morelia give me a look out of the corner of her eye, looking keenly at her watch and then at me. Her tone was urgent. We have to pick it up. We're going to run through the next water station. Don't stop. At mile 11, I felt an unexpected burst of energy and inspiration. My brain again embraced the idea of the no-meat lifestyle. Visions of macaroni and cheese and broccoli dance in my head. At mile 12, I gave my two faithful and hardworking pace runners a confident smile. I was back to imagining the forbidden filet mignon. Suddenly, I felt a burst of energy and ran flat out and left my running group behind. I sailed over the finish line, my arms held triumphant and high in the air. The race was over, along with my self-image as a plant-based diet runner. I was truly my brother's sister and not Deborah's newest acolyte. The red juicy filet mignon had won.
All right, I'm going to adjust the mic real quick as we get ready for our next teller. I'm going to move that here, see if that's helpful. Okay, next up, representing Deb Lewis's Monday class, we have Sandra McCollum reading her story, Gossip. Sandra?
At once, I realized the handsome man crossing the room of the cocktail party was K. You can't hear me?
Doing fine.
Yeah, this is the slide. That's okay.
That's my recognition.
Yeah, okay.
Have a good lunch.
Okay. At once, I realized the handsome man crossing the room of the cocktail party was K.J. Clyde. Now prosperous and charming, he greeted me warmly and began reminiscing about our childhood. Not the pariah one would expect, but accepted just as he was. I watched his face intently for signs of shame or remorse. I saw nothing. The genuine fondness he displayed for me was puzzling. He never mentioned the 6 years he sat in the tree, offending me in secret, nor did he mention the night my father chased him with a gun in another attempt to catch him after he had spied upon my nakedness. Oddly, years prior to seeing him at the party, 3 women confided in me their intense love of KJ. None of the women admitted knowledge of the other torrid affairs in his life. I didn't dare reveal the intimacy of their confessions for fear they would withhold gossip of KJ from me. Usually, I listened without comment, realizing that KJ had victimized each of them in a cruel exercise of power, captives to his cunning manipulation, which rendered them powerless to move on. I never revealed how KJ had shamed me. Secretly, I wanted to say, he is not worthy of you, let him go. But the enticement of the cant entrapped me like a spider ensnared in its own web, more vulnerable to deceit than honesty. Maybe because our shotgun houses were so close to one another, every family knew the darkest secret of their neighbors. Cant, the Creole word for gossip, pursed the lips of the young and old in gleeful delight. Often it sprouted new life, like the acorns growing on the burgeoning oak tree outside of our house, encapsulating us as victimized or gossiper. When we were little, everyone called KJ Tom, appropriately dubbing him as his resemblance and persona of a tomcat were indisputable. His blonde bangs fell across his yellow-tan skin, camouflaging his darting, gray-eyed predator stare. His penchant for climbing trees was rumored to be the cause of the horizontal scratches lining his cheeks like animal whiskers. At 10 years old, always alone, at night, he roamed the neighborhood on his bicycle like a feral cat. It never occurred to me that KJ was passionately attached to the large oak tree that loomed outside our second floor bathroom window. Every night, KJ perched on a secure limb of the oak tree where he established a secret domain. The convex bathroom window was etched in thick, circular snowflake designs, preventing anyone from looking inside. But there was another window above the convex panes with glass as clear as water. A voyeur had to be significantly high in the tree to peer down through the glass panes to watch me, an 11-year-old girl, bare-chested during her bath. I was 17 when my brother heard the neighborhood cant of KJ Kai's watching me bathe. For 6 years, he had stolen my most private moments of my youth. A predator who surveyed my breast, evolving from the shape of walnuts into voluptuous pears. Crouching in lust, he attached his senses to the budding hairs, which concealed that part of me which had remained undisclosed to everyone but KJ. Now I was the victim of whispered cant, which spread like the prolific limbs of KJ's oak tree growing outside our bathroom window. I don't remember seeing him again until this very moment, standing across from me at a cocktail party as he exuded charm and whispered cherished memories of nostalgia to me. I felt naked, exposed, but I projected unfettered dignity, lest my shame overcome me and the world would detect my vulnerability. At once, I realized that I had been as manipulated and ashamed as the other captives of KJ's painful cant, of their romantic saga with KJ. Perhaps this was the reason I was so enchanted by the gossip. It removed the powerlessness I felt and placed the burden on others. Could any of us move on?
All right. Thank you so much, Deb. Our next storyteller is Damana Shari from Willis class, sharing her story, A Tale of Hunger. Damana?
Hunger, defined as a craving for or urgent need for, and that usually means food. But that's not the kind of hunger I have. What I crave is my pre-COVID life. A hunger for my former lifestyle of going and being and doing. Movies, plays, dining out, writing groups, discussion circles, karaoke nights, margarita parties, and dropping in on friends for one perfect reason, just because, and having them drop in on me for the same reason. Now, some of my activities have resumed, but others are still on pause, not because I'm afraid of the virus or, scared of getting it, but because I have acclimated myself so well to not doing and being and going. I haven't allowed myself yet to fully re-engage, to get my social engine back on its track. And the world of not doing got nice and comfortable. But comfort is not what I found. Rather, I've taken up residence in discomfort. It's quite the paradox. I haven't engaged, yet I sorely miss engagement. So what do I really want? After thinking about it, I've realized I want to welcome people into my home. I want us to be surrounded by the aromas of delicious potluck meals at our communal table. I want to hear laughter as we recall old memories and create brand new memories. I want to hear heated discussions about how politicians are sending the country to hell in a handbasket, only to have it come around to us realizing that it's really all up to us. And I miss music. I want to hear music, the glue that binds us together. I want to hear Alexa serve up requests of everyone's favorite. From Carlos Santana's Black magic woman. To India Ari talking about brown skin. To Nancy Wilson asking, guess who I saw today? The Buffalo Springfields. There's something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear. Marvin's very soulful. Oh, say, can you see? To Luther's, woke up today, looked at your picture just to get me started. To Nina, Aretha, Gladys, and Whitney. Sisters who were so bad that when you mention them, last names aren't even allowed. From every single artist in the Motown family, to Sly and the Family Stones, I want to take you higher. From Sir Mix-a-Lot, I like big butts and I can't not lie. To Lynn Manuel, not throwing away his shot. From Kim asking, share my life, trust in me. To Johnny Kemp, who just got paid Friday night. Sting warned, every move you make, I'll be watching you. But he later redeemed himself with, free, free, set them free. Carole King stayed in bed all morning just to pass the time. And Al Green knew love can make you come home early, make you stay out all night long. And Jill Scott, living my life like it's golden, golden. Prince took a ride in her little red Corvette. And Barbara knew love could grow like a rose under the April snow. Traffic extolled the low spark of high heel boys. And Lakeside let us come along and ride on a fantastic voyage. Roberta reminded us of the first time ever I saw your face. And Queen Bee sure enough replaced him with to the left, everything you own in the box to the left. And Barry White talked about, you already know what Barry White always talked about. Music can simultaneously lift and break hearts and soothe savage beasts along the way. That's why we still remember commercial jingles we learned 30 and 40 years ago. Music is that powerful. And to demonstrate that, I'm going to read the first part of a jingle and you sing the second, okay? My baloney has a first name. That's right. Everybody doesn't like something. Yep. And one more. Give me a break. Give me a break. You get an A+. All right. Music permeates our subconscious and becomes a part of who we are. It can strengthen or debilitate. It can begin and end relationships. And it lets us know if we stayed too long or didn't stay long enough. I now know that finding my way back to claim my normal requires me to reach out, open up, and let music in. Because of music, my desire to do and be and go is greater than the pull of my self-imposed hiatus. I now release it. The Evite to my social rebirth has been composed in my head. The menu is Caribbean, and of course, it has a fantastic soundtrack. And if you know this, you may sing along also. Well, my friends, the time has come. Raise the roof and have some fun. Throw away any work to be done. Let the music play on, play on, play on, play on. Everybody sing, everybody dance. Lose yourself in wild romance. All night long, all night long. all night long. And I don't have time to finish the rest of the song. Thank you.
Simone, I need the last two. All right, another round of applause for Damana. Wonderful. We have 3 more stories for you before our break. Our next story is from Elizabeth Smart from our Norwood Park group, and it is titled A Dog, a Worm, and a Turtle. Elizabeth?
Okay. I'm looking out the window of my grad school apartment on a cold, gray November Saturday. The freight train tracks are quiet, and the cornfield, a gorgeous green and gold in August when I rented the place, is now acres of dead brown sticks. I'm from Chicago. I'm here in DeKalb after 4 years of hospital work in occupational therapy to pursue a career in medical speech pathology. As I ponder this change, a little happy, a little lonely, I look at these dead brown sticks and I see a dog all alone in the middle of nowhere, not a person in sight. I have to rescue this dog. I grab my jacket thinking I'll bring him into my apartment and report finding a lost dog to the local vets, even the police. This isn't Chicago. What do they have to do here? I climb the rise, cross the tracks, and go down into the cornfield. He's not here. I'm slightly offended. Scanning the field, I finally pick him out way in the distance. Hey, dog! Woohoo, dog! Finally, he turns and looks at me. Here, buddy, here, dog. After great hesitation, he starts trotting towards me. Good dog. Halfway to me, I think, he seems really confident. I don't think he's lost. He gets closer, and I notice his tail is kind of bushy, and his gait is kind of slinky. He comes within 20 feet and starts circling me with a wild look in his eye. I don't think he's a dog. I make a mad dash back up and over the tracks. Next morning on the local news, I hear farmers' herds are getting raided by coyotes. Oh, well, I am not deterred. I go on to rescue other animals, including wasps, spiders, a fruit fly, really, and worms. A worm on the garage floor catches my eye one day when rushing off to work. I am balancing my work bag, my purse, and lunch in one arm as I wrestle with my keys and unlock the car door. The worm is drying out, can't move. I know it will die. I think just pick it up with a stick and set it in the puddle in the alley. So I do, still holding all my things in one arm. Satisfied, I turn to the car, then stop in my tracks. Wait, I'm drowning it. So I go back, lift it with the stick, squirming, and walk around the garage and set it in the flower bed. Good. I start back to the garage. Wait, the birds, they're going to eat it. So I go back with my stick, and one-handed, I pile dirt on the worm to hide it. A big clod of dirt hits it in the head, and it rears up, waving in the air. I could almost hear it say, "Stop saving me." Though I do eventually rescue a couple real dogs, I know I'm a little over the top on this. I come to realize that this need to save animals started after I began working in hospitals to help people. Working for Cook County Acute Rehab, I wake up in the morning to news of another gunshot victim and wonder, will that person live? Be my patient? A young man who can no longer move from the neck down cries in my office that he can never play with his children again. A burned patient's face is badly disfigured and her eyes are blinded. She cannot talk or swallow. I can help a patient get off a feeding tube and eat again, but sometimes I can't. I can help a patient talk again, be understood, but sometimes I can't. Sometimes we celebrate progress, but it's never like it was before. An uncommon afternoon break on a rough day at work finds me walking the back road that circles the hospital. Up ahead, what's that small dark lump in the middle of the road? It makes a slow lurching move. A turtle directly in the path of an oncoming car. I rush to it, swoop it up and into the grassy field just in time before the car passes. My coworkers, when I tell them, joke that if the turtle had been hit, I would have had to take it down the street to the Shell station. It's a good one. But I go in my office, I look at my stack of patient folders and say, but that was the most helpful thing I did all day.
Wonderful, wonderful. We have two more stories and then we're going to take our first break. Our next story is another of Julie Gainey's students. There's been an order change. This is Audrey Colby sharing And They Ask Who We Are.
Okay. All right. It is my first time in Africa. It is 1985. I am 30 years old and I have just gotten off a 2-hour ride on top of a yam truck after a 6-hour bus ride. We have arrived at the village of Brewanyasi, Ghana, where we will work as volunteers to build a school. There are 10 Ghanaian volunteers and 10 American volunteers. The war chief in his Kente Ghanaian garb is at the entrance to the village to welcome us. Welcome to all of you. I am Nanu. Many of you have come from far away across the ocean. We give thanks to God that you have come to help us. He then shows us to a large shed. This will be where you will be sleeping. Make sure to put up your mosquito nets, as many of our villagers have suffered from malaria. He then, make sure to suffer from malaria. He then shows us a hole that the villagers have dug that has wood slats across it. This will be your latrine. The war chief continues, at this point in time, we have no running water or electricity in our village. We hope for this in our future and hope you will share our needs with Americans who can help us. Before the war chief leaves, he says, you must be very careful because there are many poisonous snakes, scorpions, and spiders. 39 Steps, a Ghanaian volunteer who got his nickname from the Alfred Hitchcock movie he loves, sees my fear and says to me, just be careful. You have a flashlight. Use it whenever you go out in the dark and you will be fine. My fear is not dispelled. What if I have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night like I do at home, I ask myself. I reflect on my home in Boston with my shower, my flush toilet, and my water faucet with its filter for drinking water. We begin work the next day. We work 6 days a week making bricks in wooden molds. We work in pairs with the village men, while the village women carry concrete and mud large bowls on their heads, which they pour into our molds. While we work, the Ghanaian volunteers sing songs to help us through the day. And they ask, who are we? We are Volu volunteers. And they ask, who are we? We are Volu volunteers. We are working to save Ghana. We are working to save Ghana. While we are working, the villagers are always asking questions about America. Do you live in a large home with a swimming pool? I respond, no, that is mainly on television and in magazines. I live in a large house that I share with 9 other people. Are these people part of your family? No, they are friends. We share food and chores and try to eat together. It is called a co-op. I would like to go to America. What do you eat for dinner? Oh, all kinds of things, chicken, fish, vegetarian meals. Soon the villagers begin inviting me over for dinner. I have been christened with the name Afi as I was born on Friday, and all Ghanaians have one name that comes from the day of the week they were born. Afi, we would love you to come over for dinner and share in our fufu. It's our national dish. The problem is that I dislike the taste of fufu. It is ground cassava and tastes like unsweetened raw dough that is dipped in a hot sauce. I do the best I can and eat as much as I am able. I then tell them I am full. Afi, you should eat more. You are so thin and that is not healthy. The reason I am thin is that every day since we have been here, we have been eating green leaf stew, except on the occasions the villagers give us chicken and eggs as a special treat. Almost every night we are there is singing and dancing to the sound of the djembe drums. The Ghanaian villagers and volunteers love to dance. As I dance at the edge of the circle, 39 Steps calls my name. Sister Afi, please come and dance. I am reluctantly dragged to the center of the circle and try to swing my hips like 39. And he says, like this. And I try, but I just can't seem to get it. And then a villager says, here, Afi, have a little palm wine. I taste a couple of swigs and it loosens me up. Eventually, I lose all my self-consciousness. To me, this is the first time I have been in a minority in a world where I am surrounded by Black Americans. I feel a little uncomfortable at first, especially when I walk through the village and the children would start crying, Obrani, meaning white person. It gives me a new perspective on life and a little bit of understanding on how African Americans feel when the situation is reversed in the US. I have been in the village for about 6 weeks and I don't feel so good. My mind is spinning and I feel so tired and so hot. Sweat pours down my forehead. I feel like I am hallucinating. Our group leader takes my temperature and it's 103. Randy, a Ghanaian volunteer, says, you should go to the doctor. I think you have malaria. But that's impossible, I say. I took all the malaria pills and put up my mosquito net. I can't go to the doctor. It's a 2-hour ride on a yam truck and I just can't handle it. Randy says, then you need to take a large dose of quinine. So if it happens to be malaria, your temperature will drop. I take his advice. I am sweating through my clothes. He puts my head in his lap. Just try to rest, Afi. Hopefully the quinine pills will help your fever go down. 24 hours later, my fever is down. I am tired, but okay. After I go back to the US, I will then learn that I did indeed have malaria, a different strain from the ones that the pills were supposed to protect me from. But it helps me realize the struggles that these villagers go through. I have witnessed a sense of community that I have never seen in the US. I have also observed how the villagers have lived and struggled without basics, like not being able to turn on a faucet to get a glass of water. I have loved working here, but I am ready to jump on a yam truck and go home and take a bath.
All right, everybody. Our last story for this first act is another of Julie's students. This is Sherry Moore reading her story, The Touch.
I guess. One evening, I was dramatically exclaiming my overwhelm to a mentor. He listened for a while, and then got up and with the thunk of a magnet attached a card to my fridge. Continuing toward the door, he nonchalantly tossed a remark over his shoulder. When you're tired of that insanity, call the number. It was San Diego, 1980, and I was a newly separated 39-year-old working mother with a teenager, 2 preteens, a dog, a rat, and a bird. The 7 of us had escaped from a big house and a bad marriage, and were now attempting to find normalcy in a 2-bedroom apartment. I could barely provide for our needs, so teenage wants were out of the question, and that made our atmosphere taut with tension. One night, when everyone else was tucked in bed, I grabbed the number and dialed. A male voice said, "Credo." A friend told me to call this number, but I don't know why. Well, what's going on? I'm totally overwhelmed and I feel like I'm losing it. The voice then gave me an address and instructed me to be there at 5 p.m. the following Thursday with a sleeping bag, a toothbrush, a change of clothes if I chose, and that I'd get on a bus. And then what? Not sure, I haven't gone yet, but I know you get off the bus on Sunday afternoon. And with no more than that, I agreed. There seemed to be no one in charge. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm so sorry. The voice, Thursday came, I'm sorry, oh, wow. Thursday came before entering the bus. All watches, wallets, pictures, books, even Bibles were left in a vault. We took nothing that offered emotional escape, avoidance, or evidence of status. We were simply 50 human beings. We did get off the bus. At a large bare bones mountain cabin, the downstairs contained a kitchen, dining hall, a few bedrooms, an enormous meeting room with countless chairs, couches, ottomans, and pillows. The upstairs had 2 non-gender specific dorms filled with cots. I claimed one and dropped my few belongings and joined the others in the big room. There seemed to be no one in charge, but a young woman stood and informed us that we would have music sessions. That's cool. I like music. She neglected to mention that it would be the therapeutic modality used to arouse feelings. This retreat had evolved from one originally developed by chaplains for addicted sailors and Marines. It was designed to give them 3 alcohol-free days to perhaps gain insight into the emotional issues driving their addictions. That night, the first musical session comprised of protest songs. After that, we were directed to retire with no conversation or eye contact. The music was geared to elicit enough anger to disturb our sleep. Conversation might dissipate that. You see, tired people have less emotional control. The next morning, following breakfast, more Injustice songs ended with Deportee by Joan Baez. The music faded into silence, but another sound began. What's that? Ooh, that kid in the corner is crying. I leaned slightly backwards, seeking an escape route. A large woman maneuvered in front of him on the floor. She gently but persistently directed questions at him until a flood of pain and tears had drained out with his story. The exhausted young man fell forward into her waiting arms. Really? No. Having been raised in polite, restrained society, witnessing someone shouting, cussing, crying, or punching pillows was horrific. I maintained my outward equanimity. But so it continued through Friday and Saturday evenings, 30 to 45 minutes of deliberately chosen music, followed by participants breaking open, working through, and finding closure. At no time was anyone in jeopardy. Our entourage was well seated with undisclosed professionals and fully trained helpers. They were proficient at working with one individual at a time, so the energy of the other 49 persons was directed toward them. All the while, something was building inside me, and a strange scale was beginning to tilt. On one side, I was reluctant to pry into these feelings, but on the other, it was becoming painful not to. The joy and camaraderie of those who had already taken the risk made my self-imposed prison all the more unbearable. After the evening's tender music, we were sent on a silent meditative walk. As we returned, a new acquaintance opened the door. I ducked under his arm, and more as a thought, I whispered aloud, I wonder if anyone ever held me and dried my tears. I wish I could remember what it felt like. As soon as the words were out, I was ashamed for uttering them. The session began, and soon a young woman dissolved into a puddle of tears. Ew, her mascara is running down her face. I will never look like that. Around midnight, a quiet moment was broken with a soft sound, like a kitten's mew. My eyes shot open as people turned toward me, and then they slammed shut. My heartbeat smothered all ensuing dialogue. I have no recollection of what I said or what happened next. That is until two hands clasped mine and gently pulled me upright as 96 other hands lifted me into the air. No, oh, no, this isn't happening. It's so humiliating. Ooh, they're touching my fat. Oh, please just let me die here. Then, through that mental cacophony came an external voice. Sherry, open your eyes. Look at the people who care. Honey, we've got you. We won't let you fall. Open your eyes. I'm here to tell you, doing so was the greatest ever test of my will. My eyelids fluttered, but I couldn't bear to focus on anyone, so my eyes darted back and forth. And then they came to rest on a hand, reaching through the jumble of faces. It lightly touched my cheek and then brushed away a few droplets. The action loosed a total torrent of tears, but not gut-wrenching ones. On the contrary, they were gentle streams of, I can't find the word, freedom, perhaps gratitude. I don't know, and I don't care. I surrendered into that moment. After hugging everyone, I sought out the man I spoke to before the session. Thank you for drying my tears. He hugged me and whispered, you're welcome, but Sherry, I didn't do it. And I didn't tell anyone either. Sometimes, when life gets crappy, as it will, I try to recapture the phenomenal feeling of being cradled. But it's the memory of the mysterious touch that sustains me. Thank you.
All right, everybody, another round of applause for our first act of Storytellers. Great work, everybody. We're going to take a quick break, about 5-ish minutes. I'm saying 5, so that will be back in time. And then we're going to turn so we can watch some stories up on the screen. So take 5 and we'll be back shortly for more stories of sustenance. Thanks, everybody. Zoom Storytellers will be with you in about 5 minutes. Excited. All right, my friends on Zoom, we're going to get started in just a minute. Great to see your faces. I know we're running a little behind, so I'm glad you're all stick around. I'm going to make this tall so I can be heard. All right, everybody, we're about to get started with our next story. Up on the screen. And it's one of my storytellers. I can't really claim Marcia. She's been in this program for a while, but I had the pleasure to work with her this session. Kicking off our second act is Marcia Fogel with her story, Barbie and the Baby.
Tuesday, January 31st, 1984. I feel something. Could I be in labor? The baby's due tomorrow, but first babies are supposed to be late, aren't they? Now it's 5 o'clock and my husband would be leaving work soon to go bowling. He was on a bowling league with some former coworkers and he just loved Tuesday night bowling. I call Ed and say to him, I think I'm in labor. Silence. Then sheepishly, should I come home? If you want to, I replied. The doctor tells us to go to the hospital. Oh my God, I'm so excited and so nervous, but I feel prepared because I took the birthing class with Ed and I was sure we'd get through this unscathed. Piece of cake. We're walking up and down the halls, me in my fashionable hospital gown, with Ed beside me. We were so naive. The pain starts to get stronger. In a few minutes, the baby starts sawing his way out. And in a split second, everything I learned in birthing class just flies right out the window. The nurse orders an epidural and tells me that the pain will dissipate. Okay. The pain is gone, but where is the baby? Nobody tells me that the epidural slows down labor. And where is my husband? I find out he escaped to the father's room, where he tried to sleep off an insistent migraine. My beloved doctor finally arrives. She's a Barbie lookalike and obviously was on her way to a party. She was very petite with long, voluminous hair that she always wore pinned on top of her adorable head. Her little feet were scurrying around in 3-inch backless heels. She was almost a cartoon character, but I trusted and looked up to her. I had confidence that her devotion and expertise would keep me and my baby safe. The baby monitor shows the baby's heart rate dropping and coming back up again, then dropping dangerously low and coming back to normal. Clearly, the baby was in distress. This went on for too long, and I started to think that the worst was going to happen. I sank into such a deep depression that I barely knew what was going on around me. The nurse and the doctor were alarmed about what was happening with the baby monitor, but I felt nothing. I was numb. Everything seemed to be happening around me rather than to me. My doctor, visibly shaken, said to me, Marcia, I don't need this at 3 o'clock in the morning. At one point, the nurse is pushing the baby around into the proper position. Ouch! The epidural was not cooperating. About 16 hours after arriving at the hospital, I was told to push that baby out. Surely they're joking. I was starving and beyond any description of exhaustion. Finally, Dr. Barbie uses forceps to remove the baby. She saw why the heart monitor was behaving so precariously. The umbilical cord was wrapped around my son's tiny neck. The nurse began to hand me this healthy little bundle wrapped in a blanket, blue hat atop his head. But I stopped her. I shook my head and pointed to my husband, who very nervously accepted his newborn son into his arms. We were both silent. Then it hit me. Did I almost lose this baby? Should the doctor have performed a C-section? But most of all, I was thinking, what just happened? My doctor's partner came to see me the next day, and he said, you know, any other doctor would have done a C-section. And then I wondered, was there a reason I was so compliant during the many hours of discomfort, worry, and dread? Yes, there was a reason. I had handed my uneasiness over to my doctor, whom I trusted with all my heart. My belief in her is what sustained me throughout the harrowing experience. She didn't make it to the party, but she had the satisfaction of delivering a completely healthy baby boy when there could have been a very different outcome. Oh, the bowlers were calling the hospital all through the night, we found out. At the end of season bowling banquet, my husband was given a prize for highest score. It was a bowling ball wrapped in a diaper.
Woo! Wonderful, Marcia. Wonderful. Our next storyteller is Joyce Gay, and she'll be reading a fascinating story. This is titled Mindscape. Joyce?
Thank you, Liam. I remember trying to sing shortly after I learned to talk. I remember early days of trying to make music when I had taken piano lessons. I enjoy just about every kind of music, but the music that sustains me is gospel and the spirituals. The Holy Spirit gave me two songs. One, The Lord is my shepherd, and the other, The Spirit of the Living Christ in Me. Both songs have been shared with my church. I use the song, Jesus Be a Fence All Around Me every day, as motivation on those days when it's hard to get started. It makes for a brighter day. About 5 years ago, I was still living at home, and I had made it down that long flight of stairs that morning. But I had already made up my mind before that day that I was going to move my bed downstairs because I had been having severe knee pain, and the problems that I was having with medication wasn't helping. Anita, my household helper, had brought a friend of hers to move the bed from upstairs to the downstairs office area. My neighbor Mel was there. She had to unlock the door because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to open the door for Anita. I was busily looking around for new pain pills. After years of using Advil, which had been working for me better than prescribed medications, it just stopped working. It wasn't happening. I would have to overdose myself to get any kind of relief. In the process of reaching for one of the newly prescribed pain pills, I started feeling woozy. "What's going on with you?" Mel asked. I don't remember my response, but whatever it was, she decided to call 911. Jesus, be a fence all around me every day. Jesus, I want you to protect me as I travel along the way. I was vaguely aware of the young men who came with the ambulance. I was a bit more in focus when I got to Little Company of Mary Hospital, but seemed to be going in and out of consciousness. Jesus walked this lonesome valley. He had to walk it by himself. I was singing, but they just couldn't hear me. I remember when David came, his office was only a few blocks from the hospital, so he was the first member of my family to get there. I remember some other things, but they were more like flashes. I was fading in and out. Do they know what's wrong with her? The doctor isn't sure yet, my son Jeff said. They're still running tests. When did he get here? He lives in Atlanta, so it had to take him some time to get here. I could see, I could hear, but not much else. I didn't feel any pain, nor did I see the famous light that people described in near-death situations. I guess since I'm still here, I wasn't supposed to see it. Maybe they're just classifications of near death. What I dreamed and what I saw are closely woven together. I remember rooms, but some were not like hospital rooms. They were more like courtrooms. A few times I remember being wheeled on a cart down long corridors. People were doing a whole lot of talking. Seemed to be too many people in that group talking. This was a little bit too personal for some of those people to be there. They meant well, I know, but I just didn't feel they knew me like that. I wanted to use a toilet. It was an ordinary looking toilet, but in order to reach it, I had to walk a balance beam. Water was rising beneath the beam in the toilet. I don't feel no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy. If I had a pleasant dream, I don't remember it. In one dream, I was caught in an elevator of an abandoned building that was scheduled for demolition. I heard the voice of Alfred, a deacon at my church. Maybe he was actually there. Real and imagined had fused together. She lives alone. That was treated like some kind of damnation. A few days later, when I seemed to be on the road to recovery, the question of what to do with me after rehab came up. She can't possibly live by herself. I was greatly upset by the idea of not going back to my normal life. How I got over, how I got over, my Lord. Being treated in the hospital by an ER assigned physician, not my own physician, and I made a somewhat miraculous recovery. My soul looks back and wonder how I got over. Rehab presented another set of challenges. That's cold, or it was awful. Thriving there required a lot more singing, a lot more work, fight, and prayer. On my journey now, Mount Zion, on my journey now, Mount Zion, and I wouldn't take nothing, Mount Zion, for my journey now, Mount Zion.
Thank you so much, Joyce. Our next story is another of my storytellers from up at Willie White. This is his first time telling with GeNarrations, so we're happy to welcome him into the family. This is Marcus Waller reading his story, Family.
We go through changes, changes we go through. We go through changes, changes we go through. I wish one of my sons would come to me like that. I'd kill him. We were watching the trailer for the 1972 ABC TV movie of the week, That Certain Summer, with Hal Holbrook and Martin Sheen about homosexual love. That moment changed the trajectory of my gayness. I mean, here was my mother, my heart, the person I entrusted everything with, my appearance, my meals, my education, hell, the lights and the rent. Here, this gorgeous woman said she would kill one of her own if they were that way. I, as a 12-year-old who knew exactly who he was at least 3 years prior to that night, when I took that photo of Bobby Sherman for an extended visit in the bathroom, I knew who I was. Now what to do? Mom was out of the question. My brother, who started, excuse the language, fucking in the 6th grade, at least that's what everybody told me, he was the exact opposite of me. Plus, his afro was always tight, and mine looked like a porcupine. I never could figure out how he could get out the house and look perfect. Yeah, but that was my brother, and I loved him madly. I still do, but he, in my mind, was out of the question as well. If my mom was going to kill me, what would my great straight brother do? Dad? No. Hell no. Dad, he was out the question. That was a real nigga right there. Straight from Holly Springs, Mississippi, a union man. He loved the ladies, gambling, and drinking. He would proudly state, Johnny Walker Red put me to bed last night. So immediate family were out. So I became an intense reader of all and anything gay. I had to find someone, something, anything to validate my feelings. Books on homosexuality, articles in newspapers about gay life, glossy magazines like After Dark, hell, even the New York Village Voice schooled me. What I learned was, to say the least, it wasn't cute. Back alley blowjobs, meeting in clandestine places, sex in dark places. To this day, I'm still angry at all the BS that I read. Where was the love? Where was the families? Where were the goals? Anything that was relatable to me and where I came from. See, my mother was a stunning woman, born in Panama, schooled in Jamaica. She came to America for a better life. She was a lab tech that sometimes held 2 outside jobs along with her primary one. She and Dad separated when I was 3 years old. All of my early memories of Dad was of him working or holding a drink. My brother, he was just the coolest. I mean, the coolest. I would look at him and I was always proud to say, that's my brother. Not perfect. We weren't perfect, but we were a family. We were there for each other. This gay life I read about was void of love. It was void of family. It did not fit into anything that I could readily understand. So fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how I look at it on any given day, we moved from 79th Street to 48th and Lake Park in late 1972. I transferred from South Shore to Kenwood High School. Now the gang intimidation that I was so used to had turned into outsider intimidation. I didn't care. Downtown was a bus ride away. In 10 to 15 minutes, I was engorged with neon lights, triple X-rated movie theaters, peep shows, and world of different people. In short, the gay life that I had read about. I would leave school. I'd go buy me a Chicago Tribune and sometimes steal some gay porno magazines in my Chicago Tribune, that is, until the Korean lady caught me. And that's another story. We won't get into that right now. So I was able to go to all the black movies downtown and occasionally sneak into a straight X-rated film. Then I finally got into the Newberry on Clark in Chicago, an X-rated gay movie theater. However, when I really think about it, that's not living. Ogling nude photos, anonymous sex in dark places, dark, dirty, filthy locations. I accepted it back then because I thought that was my fate, that there was no love to be had like a boy like me. I almost forgot. Did I mention I started to get high in high school? I started selling also. Now, all of a sudden, all those very same people who called me fat, four-eyed faggot were competing for my attention. Now, I never forgot that. I never forgot that. Now, don't get me wrong. I took their money. I still took their money. Yes, I did. I became known as Maceo with that good bow, what we call weed back then. Years later, my mother asked me if I was gay, and I said yes. She asked me very tenderly, is it something that I had done? I reassured her she didn't do anything, and through the years, we became staunch allies. Now, my brother Ricardo, he found my porno stash in college. He asked the same question. I said, no, I'm not gay. I didn't want to disappoint him. About 5 or 6 years later, when I met my partner, the same man that I've been with for 37 years, my brother never batted an eye. He just welcomed him into the family. One day, I just told Dad, and his response was, well, at least I didn't hear that from no motherfucker in the streets. And that was that. I met through my weed sales the family I so needed. About 10 people who throughout the last 40 years have given me that sense of family that I so craved for. They are straight, they are gay, they are men, they are women, they're heads, dope fiends, and they are my family. We talk, we argue, we fuss, and we fight, but in the end, we love each other for who and what we are. This journey wasn't easy. It's still not easy, but I don't believe I would change a thing. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you. I don't know if you can hear the applause in the room, but wild applause. All right. Our next storyteller is Keith Kelleher, and he'll be reading his story, Hunger. Keith?
Mom, I asked as our Ford LTD lurched through the streets of Sunset Park, Brooklyn, home to Long Island, my head resting in her lap as I looked up at her. What? She asked, still irritated by my 7 siblings arguing behind us in the middle seat and in the rear fold-up seats of the station wagon, but seeming to calm down as she put them on notice that they better be quiet or else. This was usually the time everyone calmed down as we worked our way down 4th Avenue to exit onto the BQE, the Brooklyn Queens Expressway, and then head east on the LIE, the Long Island Expressway, with my father at the wheel for what seemed like hours in bumper-to-bumper traffic to cover the 25 or so miles home to Manhasset. But now I was hypnotized by the sight of the L and the stretches of track and light that flickered above me as the sun was setting, and we headed back to Long Island through those same familiar route we always used to get home from my grandmother's apartment. Why am I so fat? I asked as I looked up at the 4th Avenue L train and the street lights and the lights flicker in and out of the vision as I peered up through the passenger window. You are not fat, she said. You're just a big boy. But Mom, most people always call me fat. You are not fat. You're, she kept repeating, searching for a word. You're husky. Husky, I laughed. Just like my size in the clothes stores? Yeah, just like your size. That's why they call him husky, because you're a big boy for your age. You were a big baby, one of the biggest of all my babies. So you're a big boy. How much did I weigh? I asked, even though I knew I was over 9 pounds. Oh, you were a big one, way over 9 pounds. Doctors, they thought you were a cannonball. A cannonball, I laughed. Yeah, my cute little cannonball, she giggled as she started tickling me. Just like Superman, Man of Steel, she joked. I giggled as I tried to block her tickles. But Ma, I said, At Valentine's Day, I was the only one in class who didn't get a Valentine. Some of the other kids said it was because I was too fat. Who said that? She snapped. I don't know. Some of the other kids. I didn't want to think out any of my friends. They don't know what they're talking about. You shouldn't listen to them. They don't know a thing. I just wish I could stop eating, I said, but I'm always hungry. Well, you just got to stop eating all the crap, all the junk food you eat. I know, but they taste so good, Ma. I thought of my favorites. Peanut M&Ms, Oreos dipped in cold milk, Mallow Mars with the chocolate covering and the graham cracker crust. I loved cracking the top of the Mallow Mar and exposing the marshmallow before I bit into it and washed it all down with milk, or the best, when Mom stopped by Dunkin' Donuts on the way home from the grocery store and brought home a dozen assorted donuts, the glazed being my favorite at the time, the way they melted in your mouth and washed down so well with the milk. When I was growing up, she continued, we always liked the big boys. Really? I asked, disbelieving. You really like the big boys, the fat boys? Oh, sure, she said in her Brooklynese. Oh, sure, all the girls like the big boys. Really? I said, not believing what she said. Did girls really like big fat boys like me? Like who? I asked. Like who did they like? Like Jackie Gleason. He's big, he's heavy, but look at his face. He's a very handsome man. He can sing, he can dance. He's very talented. He has his own orchestra. Jackie Gleason, I thought. And I did one of my impersonations for her of the guy who sang for Joe the bartender, Frank Fontaine, playing Crazy Guggenheim, that she and my father loved when I did it for him at home. Hey, Mr. Dennehy. My mother laughed at my Crazy Guggenheim. You know, my mother continued, my father was a big man. The detective, I said. Your father, the detective? Yeah. Lieutenant in charge of detectives, Manhattan South. He was a very big man. How big was he? Oh, way over 6 feet. And he weighed over 300 pounds when he died. Wow, he was big. He had to be so he could handle all those mobsters and the crooks. He was protecting us all from the gangsters. I remember some of the pictures she had of him that she kept in the bottom of the hall closet, next to the box with the felt lining, where his blackjack was kept, like it was some holy chalice from the church. The pictures of Big Bill Burns, chief of detectives, Lower East Side of New York City, some in his uniform when he was a beat cop, others of him in a suit with his gold detective shield pinned to his chest. He even had some pictures of him in a bathing suit at Breezy Point, the Irish Riviera, right next to the Rockaways in Queens. He had a big barrel chest and a barrel for a gut as well. She looked out the window as she described her father, my grandfather, and his courage, protecting us all from the bad guys. Seeming to be in another world, New York's finest. You're going to be built like him, a big, strong man. Really? You think, Ma? I said as I felt sleep inching its hold over me. I could see the big gas tanks of the gas company reflected in the window as we passed, just leaving Queens, but still a long way from home. Oh, sure. Oh, sure. You're going to be big and strong like him, she said. I beamed with joy. You're going to grow up out of it. As you go taller, all that baby fat, it's just going to melt away, and you're going to be big and strong like him. Her voice trailed off as my eyes fluttered closed, dreaming of me as Big Bill Burns, with visions of Malamars and Dunkin' Donuts in my head as I dropped off to sleep.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Pete. Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. I should have mentioned Keith representing Deb's Friday class, and Joyce Gay was representing one of Cynthia's classes. Next up, we have another of Deb Lewis's students representing the group at Radcliffe Hall. This is Lisa DeSantiago reading her story, What We Did for Love. Lisa, you just need to unmute.
As the sign on my computer tells me. Okay. Ollie, ollie, oxen, free, free, free. It was the summer of 1971, and my summer was filled with bike rides to the beach, three-step murder in the alley, and kicked the can when the streetlights came on. It was also the summer that my father had agreed to collect the garbage from the enclosed back porches of our courtyard building as a way for us to avoid eviction. Now, I was raised to know that any job done well brings dignity to the doer. And my dad was doing his best in the middle of his addiction. My brother was 15, and I recall him grabbing a large burlap bag and joining my father 4 days a week to go and collect the garbage. I was clueless to my brother's sacrifice until the day that my mother sat us both down. Listen up, kids. Escúchame. Your father is having a hard time staying clean. So he's going back to New York until he can get his shit together. This was my mother enforcing my father's belief that one should not shit where one eats. The responsibility of supplementing my mother's 2-job income now fell squarely on my brother's shoulders, and not so squarely on my shoulders, his 10-year-old assistant. Our courtyard building consisted of 32 4-bedroom apartments, which required us to visit each landing and collect the open paper bags of garbage, because this was before the day of the hefty bags. The garbage was found both inside and outside of the supplied trash cans. So we would lift each bag, praying that the bottom wouldn't fall out, and put it into the large burlap bag so that we could collect from more than one floor before going all the way downstairs to empty it into the dumpster. To battle the hot summer smells, the greasy food deposits, and the maggots, my mother got us a bandana and Playtex living gloves, which my abuela soaked and washed in a little bleach after each use. Bendiciones. My abuela offered this blessing each time that we left the house. But it was particularly heartfelt on those days when we left to collect the garbage. We were not allowed to cuss, but I remember declaring very loudly inside of my head, I hate fucking maggots. How do they multiply so fucking fast? Being smart kids with vivid imaginations and the ability to problem solve within the context of our lives, my brother and I created what we thought were more efficient ways of getting the job done. And then we gamified our strategies. Instead of bringing the burlap bag all the way downstairs, we would drag it down a flight to the half landings where the windows were. And then we would drop each paper bag from the 3rd and 2nd floor into the dumpster we had rolled under the window. My brother explained with an air of authority, which his type A personality dictates. If you hit the dumpster, you get 10 points. If you make it half in and half out, you only get 5 points. And if you miss, you get 0 points and you have to clean up the mess. I thought it funny that he emphasized the you, because my non-type A personality had no intention of missing. We knew nothing of wind velocity and the effects of humidity on garbage dropped from a measured height. But you learn really fast if you don't want to clean up the mess. Our plan was genius until we got to Shit Alley. The north side gangway, sandwiched between 2 buildings, where seemingly every dog in the world chose to take a dump, and where every maggot's parents thrived so that they might reproduce again. The narrowness of Shit Alley required us to carefully coordinate the rolling of the dumpster. The person in front, usually me, would pull the dumpster slowly through this minefield of dog shit, which I was sure was designed by the Canine Department of Defense for whatever reason my 10-year-old mind could concoct. While managing this incredible feat of precision and balance, you would simultaneously instruct the person, usually my brother, pushing blindly from the back as to the location of each pile. Dude, you got a ginormous one on your right. My right, not your right. You mean my left, doofus? He answered as he jumped to his right. Dang, who owns the Great Dane? Yeah, right again, dork. Now look out for the two in the middle. Whoa, near miss, sis. Thanks. We hoped that our language was precise enough to prevent our siblings from stepping in it. After collecting from 12 units, we would reverse the process. Needless to say, missing in Shit Alley increased the consequences exponentially. And we both developed a very good eye for hitting the target, be it a catcher's mitt or a basketball hoop. My father would return home to work the program at Safari House, where he later became a counselor. And my bro and I both learned that summer that La Familia is what gets you through the tough times. Si se puede. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa. We have one more Zoom storyteller. This is another of Cynthia's students reading her story, The Soundtrack of My Life. This is Deb Salinas.
Hi, Liam. Thank you so much. I am dedicating this read to Javier Cruz. Rest in peace and music, my friend, because you are part of the soundtrack of my life. I am about 6 years old and have just walked home from school on a snowy, cold winter's day. My little woolen coat, scarf, mittens, and boots aren't enough to protect me from Chicago's brutal wind. Walking into Mom's kitchen, filled with the rich aromas of her cooking and the frosty windows fogged from the steam of the pinto beans cooking on the stove, I begin to warm up. Dad lovingly takes off my boots, scarf, and mittens and starts to rub my cheeks and hands to warm them up. As I slip off my coat, Mom makes me wash my hands, gives me a warm tortilla straight off the comal or griddle, slathered with butter, and sits me at the table. All the while, soft Spanish music from the radio plays throughout the house. My heart is full. I came out of the womb singing. I recall that same 6-year-old little girl looking out the window on a rainy night, watching the raindrops cling to the window on singing Lágrimas de Amor or Tears of Love, and feeling the poignant song of heartbreak down to her very soul. In school, I would be one of the loudest singing, out with all of my heart. I don't have a 4-octave range like Minnie Riperton, although that won't stop me from trying to reach that very high note. You know the one. But I can carry a tune. One of my biggest fears was having my vocal cords clipped accidentally during 2 throat surgeries. Fortunately, that did not happen. But unfortunately, as one ages, the voice does too. William Congreve once wrote, "Music has charms to soothe a savage breast. to soften rocks or bend a knotted oak. I believe this. Music has the power to soar upward, spiraling and carrying you on a wave of emotion to unimagined heights, or drift down softly like layers of soft clouds to a whisper that hangs in midair. It's a gentle soliloquy that falls upon the ear, taking you into another realm. The first few notes of Europa by Santana send me to an ethereal world. My life has been a plethora of music, sustaining me through every aspect of my life in almost every genre. Music as old as time and as new as now, from Beethoven to Lizzo. Every lyric is someone's experience and becomes ours too. To quote Carole King, my life has been a tapestry of rich and royal hues, an everlasting vision of the ever-changing views. I find pieces of me in every song I listen to. Music has been a constant with me, whether it's celebrating good times with Kool and the Gang or screaming a grito, that odd howl you hear at every Mexican wedding or quinceañera, to the late, great Vicente Fernandez. It's been there during the sweeter times in life and also in the sadder. I learned about love listening to the likes of Smokey, the Stylistics, the Beatles, Ed Sheeran, and Tim McGraw. Heartbreak from Jim Croce, Barbara Lewis, and Broadway musicals. Pondered social issues listening to Ball of Confusion by the Temptations, Derecho de Nacimiento, or The Right of Birth by Natalia Lafourcade. And my musicals like West Side Story and Cabaret. Is it no wonder the love of my life is a musician? Hearing him test his new keyboard while on the phone, my stomach dropped to my knees. Just a few chords of Ventura Highway, and I knew he was mine forever. My first religious epiphany came at the age of 16, listening to Jesus Christ Superstar. The story about a man named Jesus really came to life for me. The gut-wrenching Gethsemane, I only want to say, that end line where Jesus, so tired, blurts out, "Take me now, before I change my mind." Hearing his helplessness and vulnerability was life-changing for me. They say, he who sings prays twice. Singing the Psalms in Mass brings a different understanding to Scripture. I once sang with a combined triple parish choir in Spanish, Polish, and Gospel. There is nothing like the feeling of the Holy Spirit emanating from the soles of your feet and bursting out the top of your head like a ray of light as the words, "How excellent," crescendo to the rooftop. Even now, when I'm in need of prayer, I sing, "Be not afraid," or "Jesus Christ is the way." I grew up with an endless soundtrack, and lately music seems to bring up more memories, especially when an artist leaves us. It's like losing an old friend. My playlist is long and continues to expand with time. Being a grandmother means my repertoire now includes Baby Shark and Breakfast Burrito. Today, my anthem is "I'm Still Here" by Mandisa, as I continue to be Bobby's girl. And though that 6-year-old still lives deep inside of me, I move a little more despacito. But that won't stop me from doing a rebel yell with Billy Idol or hitting the dance floor when a heart-thumping boom, boom, pow comes on. Because, as we all know, life is a cabaret. Side note, I am so positive that when that time comes, as it must for all of us on this earth, there will be a song lyric running through my head, probably something like, I've imagined death so much, it feels more like a memory. Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton. That, or Is That All There Is by Peggy Lee. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Oh, kicking the mic. That brings us to the end of Act 2 and our Zoom storytellers. We have one more act consisting of 4 fantastic stories. So please stick around for that. And we're going to take one more 5-minute break so we can turn our chairs around, stretch our legs, and then hear our final stories of Sustenance. See everybody in 5.
Should have recorded myself, but I didn't, so it's all good.
All right, everybody. It is time for our final act of Stories of Sustenance. Are you all ready? Yeah. All right. Let's find our seats. Those of you on YouTube, find your screens so that we can hear our next story. This is the second of Adrian's students from the online world, reading her story living a purple and yellow life, please welcome Donna L. Pasternak.
I am going to do my best not to knock this over.
I'm gonna adjust it.
Okay. Oh. Yeah, I think so. All right. The minute I saw that purple and yellow two-piece bathing suit, I knew it would make me beautiful. It had dime-sized polka dots spread across a field of dark purple, a purple like the capes of royalty, like the purple of wisdom and ambition. The ruffles on the seat of the suit were thinly outlined in yellow fabric, emphasizing narrow skirt layers that tucked to the top of my thighs, giving my 10-year-old body the roundness that wouldn't come for at least another 3 years. Even today, almost 60 years later, my heart surges thinking about how I was drawn to it. I love that bathing suit and couldn't wait to wear it so everyone could see how impressive I was. I was especially excited to show it to Nancy and Susie, two friends I don't even remember not having in my 10-year-old life. Nancy said, "What are you wearing?" Giggling, she spat. "No one would ever wear those two colors together. Where did you even buy a bathing suit like that?" Of course, Susie then chimed in, "God, Donna, how silly are those two colors together? What were you thinking buying such an ugly bathing suit?" I was speechless. I felt shame. What did they mean yellow and purple weren't good colors together? My bathing suit was ugly, silly looking, an object of ridicule? I didn't understand. Holding back tears, I ran home and looked in the mirror. The suit was beautiful. I was beautiful. What were they talking about? Why did they hurt me? And then thinking about it, why did they often hurt me, or each other for that matter? Even at 10 years of age, this episode made me think about who I was and who my friends were. It made me think about how much control people can have over me and what the benefits and drawbacks are to my relationships. That bathing suit became emblematic of what I should value and who I should value in my life. Not because my friends didn't like a purple and yellow patterned bathing suit, but because they thought it was appropriate to shame me over it. So I decided to find new friends. It wasn't easy to drift away from Nancy in elementary school. She was always in my classes and after-school programs, even all through junior and senior high school. She didn't change much over the years. She still enjoyed shaming people, always with a giggle and a grin. It was easier to avoid Susie because she was never in any of my classes. However, she did seek me out and confront me in the 7th grade and warned me that I was damaging my reputation by befriending ugly people. And I needed to think more selectively about who I hung out with. I never quite understood why my other friendships were important to her. There were so many new people to meet in my town, as 6 elementary schools combined to form 2 junior high schools and then 1 high school. 2,100 kids who were kind and funny and teased each other with love, not malice. Kids like Lorraine and Donnie, Gloria and Mimi, and of course, Robin, always Robin. I'm still drawn to purple and yellow. My wardrobe overflows with these colors. My spouse, an avid gardener, has grown a yard filled with purple and yellow for us. Pasque flowers pushing through the brown of winter, their amethyst paintbrush petals stretching their ragged ends to the sun, signaling to the rest of the garden that it's time to come alive. A torrent of creeping phlox with their crenellated blossoms carpeting the yard in lavender, and the irises with their violet beards sprouting from their golden centers, teetering on wisps of green stems, bewitching the butterflies and hummingbirds that dance across our property. Purple and yellow have come to provide pleasure and solace in my life. However, I sure do wish I still had that purple and yellow bathing suit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Donna. Our next story is from our brand new GeNarrations group over at the Chicago History Museum. We hope we'll get to work there many times again in the future. This is first-time GeNarrations student Rick Gordon reading his story, Peggy LaPlante. Rick?
Thank you, Peggy LaPlante. I'm sure I thanked Peggy many years ago, but I doubt I really understood what she did for me. I met Peggy when I was maybe 19 years old and in college. That's when the wheels seemed to be coming off my life. I had rolled through high school on those wheels, honors classes, not genius level, but good grades, crazy, busy after school life. Now I was commuting to college at the new Circle campus of the U of I. I rode the L to classes, then I rode the L to work, and I rode the L home. Then something changed. I missed a few classes. I don't remember why. Then I missed a few more. And then still more after that. I rode the L, meaning to face up to all the missed class time. And I never got off the train. I just kept riding, afraid if I showed up in class, a professor would ask me the question I dreaded and just couldn't answer. Where have you been? I remember the fear, the shame, and being frozen. And those wheels of mine just seemed to have rolled away. But I also remember Peggy LaPlante. I don't recall how I did it, but one day there I was, actually on campus, not in class, but in the student counseling service reception room. I remember how hard it was to walk up to the person at the desk, how hard it was to get the words out, to tell someone what I had not told anyone, that I thought I was flunking out of school. Have a seat, I was told. And then I was led to the office of Margaret LaPlante, Peggy's office. I'm hoping Peggy will forgive me if I try to recall for you what she looked like that day. Maybe in her 30s, dark hair cut short, round face, nicely dressed, no jeans, a quick smile. Pretty, if you'll allow me to judge such things. I struggled that day to explain to her the unexplainable and the doom I felt sure was coming. Peggy was unflappable and practical. Let me make a few phone calls. And she did. As she talked on the phone, I barely listened. And when she was done, the failing grades I deserved became incompletes. And I got another chance. That was how my time with Peggy started, on a day of misery and miracle. Other days with Peggy in her office followed as she helped me get the wheels of my life back on. It's just possible my tale of personal despair and confusion was just another day in the office for Peggy. There were thousands of kids at Circle, and I learned Peggy's appointment book was seldom empty. But it wasn't just another day for me. It was the start of getting out of the deepest hole I had ever been in. Let me make a few phone calls. Weeks later, when I moved on and my visits with Peggy stopped, I'm sure I didn't grasp all she had done for me. I think I do now, and have for many years, and I still remember it. And when I do, I say, thank you, Peggy LaPlante, and mean it.
That's fantastic, Rick. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. We have two more stories tonight. Our next story comes from our group at Homan Square with The Puzzle. This is Linda King.
Here we go. The pieces of me. The puzzle. What is my substance? That was a question that I really had to ponder. When COVID hit, I found something out about myself. My whole life was pretty much doing for others. During that time, there was no one for me to help, and I had to entertain myself. I did things for myself, and it was very unfamiliar, an unfamiliar experience. I sat at home alone on lockdown. I did puzzles, I sewed, I crafted, and I did some decluttering. There's a lot of time to focus on me now. A couple of nights ago, I woke up around 5:00 a.m. and thought about the Beverly Hillbillies show. I still love that show. I came home after school to watch it, and I always found this theme song to be fascinating. Come and listen to a story about a man named Jed, poor pioneer that barely kept his family fed. And then one day while shooting at some food, and up through the ground came a bubbling pool. All that is, black gold, Texas tea. I started putting my life into the songs, and I changed the song to reflect my life. Let me tell you a story about a girl named Lynn. She was the oldest of her kids. That's how it all began. And then one day after coming home from school, she found her mom kneeling in a bubbling pool, a pool of tears. He's gone. On who will I depend? That's when it all started. The day my dad died. My mom was a stay-at-home mother of 4 children, and my dad and her co-parent raising the family together. They had their issues as married couples do. However, they sometimes separated, reunited, separated, reunited, and got back together again. My dad was the foundation of the family. He was always around, but sometimes he stayed at my grandparents' house just to let it cool down. He taught me many things, like hanging curtains, fixing things around the house, and helping mom with my younger siblings. He and my grandfather had a painting and decorating business, and I got to go on jobs with them sometime. My artistry stuff I do, I got it from him. He taught me stuff that most men would teach their oldest sons. My 2 brothers were younger than me, ages 5 and 3, at the time of my dad's death. Dad said, always be productive and help others when you can. My sister was 5 years younger than me and wasn't held to the same standards as I was. He always said, I'm not going to be around forever, Riri. That was his nickname for me. He would say, you are going to have to take over when I'm gone. Okay, Dad, was always my reply. He had been telling the family for a long time, I'm going to die at the same age as Jesus Christ, age 34. And he did. When my father died, Mom said, I don't have anyone to depend on to help me now. And I knew it had to be me. When my father died, I could hear my father's voice saying, it's time for you to step in, Linda. He called me by my first name when he was serious about the next thing he was going to say. We made plans for the funeral. I had to watch my siblings and my mom. My mother didn't have the best of relationship with my dad's family after the separation. They didn't let her have any input in the service arrangements, and it was sort of disrespectful. The funeral was on Pulaski Street, a Mount Olive Missionary Baptist Church. He had always wanted an Isaac Hayes song played at his funeral while the family and friends walked around for the final viewing. And we honored his request. I could hear him saying, tell your mom I'm going to dedicate this song to her, Linda, okay? And once again, my reply, I Stand Accused by Isaac Hayes was the title of the song. As I listened to the song, I thought to myself, I've done what I needed to do. I'm coming to be with you, Dad. I ran out of the church, down Pulaski, turned on Fifth Avenue toward the expressway. My goal was to run on the expressway and die. A gentleman stopped me as I was running and asked me where I was going. I told him, I'm going to be with my dad. He said, but you can't go down there. Okay. I believe my uncle was yelling for someone to stop me. At that moment, he caught up with me, took me back to the church. My mom was so sad. My dad had told me I had to be her helpmate, so I helped her. I helped my brothers and sisters. I was helpful at all times. That was my substance, helping others. When I love so hard. And with the loss of my dad, I never had and never did have time to grieve. I immediately had to step in and help my family. A few months after that, everything settled in. My mom found a job and moved us from the west side to the south side. And she had no more contact with my dad's side of the family for years. I always stayed in touch with them, keeping them informed of special events, graduations, birthdays. When I got older, I moved back to the west side with my grandparents. And that was the move that seemed to be missing and brought the families back together again. During COVID, I couldn't go out and help others. I was told to stay in the house because of medical issues. So being alone like I was, I realized I helped others, but I didn't help myself. I thought about all the pieces of me. First, I was a daughter, then a big sister. I was a niece, a cousin, a crafter, a wife, a mother, a teacher, a minister, a friend, and a helper to all. These were all the pieces of me. And I started putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And you know what I realized? I am my own substance.
Okay, we have reached our final story. Last but certainly not least, reading his story, Sanctified, please welcome Patrick Curtin.
Sure. Let's do this one. Yeah. There we go. So the lives of the saints have helped sustain me through many of life's travails. When I was 5 years old in 1953, I was introduced to my first saint, Lucy, who is the patron saint of our parish. There was a life-size statue, and she wore ancient Roman gowns, held a palm leaf in one hand and a platter in the other, her gaze heavenward, so you could only see the whites of her eyes. I thought the objects on the platter were olives, and maybe she was the patron saint of waitresses. But it turns out that a pagan Roman official wanted to compromise Lucy's virtue. And being a Christian, she refused and had her eyes plucked out. So I made several novenas to St. Lucy, which was 9 weeks of special devotions and prayers. So you can imagine my surprise in my mid-30s when Aunt Mary said, "You're squinting." A trip to the eye doctor confirmed that I needed glasses. So a few years earlier, I understood that the Catholic Church teaches that it's okay to be homosexual as long as you don't practice. So I figure it's okay to be Catholic as long as you don't practice. Well, I got my comeuppance by having to wear glasses for my lack of practice. But today, I am grateful that the glasses blunt the lines and puffiness around my eyes. When I was 8 years old, my favorite saint was Tarcissus, who died as a martyr for his Christian faith. I imagined myself being welcomed into heaven as a martyr while my classmates were left behind, practicing cursive writing, memorizing multiplication tables, and diagramming sentences. I enjoyed that my namesake, St. Patrick, had a parade and a school holiday. I was shocked when I went to a state college and discovered that St. Patrick's Day was not a national holiday. St. Joseph, my middle name, I admired because he got to be a father without having to touch lady parts. And I chose for confirmation the name John, the beloved disciple, who is often seen with his head resting on Jesus's chest. I had a crush on Jesus. But this presaged my lifelong attraction to unavailable men. So there was a Catholic store nearby that had exotic statues on all of these shelves, and I would just spend all sorts of time exploring there. And when I was about 9, my mother patiently explained to me that when you write a check, you actually have to have cash in the bank to cover the check. Well, this sent me into a tailspin. How was I going to find financial security? And I thought maybe there's a saint for that. So I scoured the Catholic store and sure enough, found the Infant of Prague, who was a check saint. Now, I didn't realize that. Now, you're going to get me in trouble with a 5-minute police if you keep laughing like that. Okay. So let's see. Oh yeah, my Uncle John married Lillian, who's Bohemian. And my grandpa, who is from Ireland, worried that women would show up to family wakes wearing shawls. So I found the Infant of Prague statue, and it had red and white robes that you covered in a plastic shield, and you put a dime underneath the statue, and that was supposed to give you financial security. However, I had many long conversations with my mother about just how did this work and what happens in this case and in that case. And finally, in exasperation, she said, you know what? If you don't have any money, at least you've got that dime underneath the statue. So I decided to declare a truce, and I saved up my money. And in my first multicultural act from my paper route, I bought that Infant of Prague statue, which has sustained me in financial discipline throughout my life. So I have to ask, who today do you think would be a likely candidate for sainthood? And what comes to the top of my list is Venerable Nancy Pelosi. And like Joan of Arc, Nancy has skillfully and bravely defended our country from enemies, foreign and domestic. She has sustained my hope for the American experiment. And in a few years, I can imagine a life-size statue of Nancy Pelosi like St. Lucy, but instead of holding a platter of eyeballs, she's going to have a platter of a former president's orange balls.
Thing. All right, everybody, and that concludes Generations. A round of applause for all our storytellers. Beautiful work all around. Okay, for those of you who are in person, this sheet of paper has information about the winter session, about Filet of Solo, and about the Teaching Artist Training Program, GeNarrations. I'm not going to read it right now because we are over time, but read it yourself. And if you lost yours, like I did 3 times today, there's a stack of them by the water cooler. Everyone online, I'll send an email out with the same information. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being fantastic storytellers. I think that's enough for today. We will see you all next session in January for more Generation stories. Have a great night and a great holiday, everybody.